Colin, Cuthbert, Tom Hitchcock. I've been looking forward to this episode. How are you?
I'm really well, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. So we've got a similar tonality, which means only one thing. We are long-suffering West Ham United fans.
And we keep suffering.
It keeps giving, eh? It's peculiar. Did you watch the Liverpool game?
No, I didn't. To be fair, mate, I actually don't watch much football.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's a West Ham thing. I just haven't got the time at the moment. But no, I'll get back to it. Did you?
Mate, yes, I've seen it, and it's I don't know. I think VAR has a lot to be answered for. It's just such a shame because the title's theirs anyway, and every point matters for us. For a season we probably want to write off again.
I think so.
Anyway, all right, I won't bore everybody else who's not a West Ham fan, but I'm looking at your background. I know what the orange dot is, but am I right in thinking that you're in a classroom?
I'm in a classroom, mate. It was built in 1835. I'm not quite that old, but no. So EOS implementer, I do it out of a classroom on Kent Street. So it just the stars seemed to align when I found this office to helping leadership teams grow. But it's the perfect place, apart from the noise that goes on sometimes outside.
Yeah, no, I had the privilege to come down and catching up and seeing the office, and it definitely has an impact on novelty value, but obviously teaming in history as well. But yeah, people listening to this, they don't know you, Colin. They'd love to hear a bit about your story, what you're comfortable with sharing, and what's brought you to this point, I guess. Well,
it's interesting you brought up the West Ham thing, mate, because I'll go back to leaving school. I was middle, younger brother, older sister. Did a few jobs. One was retail in a sports shop with my PE teacher. Moved on to become a football coach, health and fitness. And then my last job before I left to come over here, I was working in pharmaceutical sales for Smith and Nephew. But I actually applied for a job at West Ham when we were still at Upton Park. And I got down to a second job interview selling corporate hospitality. And it's interesting because I was absolutely gutted. I didn't get the job, but I was playing football with a good mate of mine that he'd already booked to come to Australia. He'd already booked his flight. And I said to him, mate, do you mind if I travel with you to Australia if I don't get the job? And true story. He picked me up on a Saturday. This is back in 2002, I think it was, before we travelled, December 2002. And he said, mate, no problems at all. But yeah, the letter arrived. It's sat on my doormat. I said, mate, you open it. He ended up opening it. And I was gutted to not get the job. But I look back on that moment, a very sliding door for me, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for that job rejection after getting down to a second job interview at West Ham. Look, I would have loved. But there's a little bit of going back in history.
You know what? You can just listen to that in itself, and obviously there's a component of West Ham there which we both automatically going to connect to. But it's those moments in life that's a number of years ago, which obviously the rejection is rejection. People don't like it. It's their dream job. It's whatever, and people suffer rejection a lot, and they struggle to process it. But it's nice when now time's passed on it, even at the time as well, with some respects, that you've seen that there's many positives that have come out of it the other way around. It's nice to see how that's unfolded for you.
Yeah, but I agree. It's interesting over the past sort of few months, or if not years. I mean, I've looked at, and I think the world of today, there's a lot of people going through a lot of things in their life, and the economy might not be the strongest. But sometimes we got to look in maybe some of those dark or grey moments and think, what's this teaching me? If I go back even further, I remember at the age of 6, my dream was to become a pro footballer. Never made it. I think as an English kid, kicking a Coke can around the playground or a tennis ball, it was probably a lot of people's dreams. But I had a couple of bad injuries. But I was unemployed at the age of 16, 17 for about 6 months. And I remember keeping about, I think it was 52 or 53 job rejection letters. And of course, at the time, we go, what the hell's going on? Yeah. But it's only sort of maybe months or years later when we reflect on it and say, well, sometimes those darker times, they're teaching us something, and we start to sprout something. So, yeah, it definitely taught me something, because it does teach resilience, and we can start to look back on things and self-reflect.
So back to the West Ham component then. If we're going to learn anything from being a long-suffering West Ham fan, it's definitely resilience.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We,
No,
we just keep learning, right?
oh, but do we learn? I don't know.
We will
anyway,
do one day.
Okay, so you came to Australia. Clearly, you haven't looked back, which is good. That's been the right move for you. What have you been keeping yourself busy doing since you arrived here?
Mate, arrived, I think it was the 2nd of December 2002 in Cairns after doing a month in Thailand, month in Malaysia with a mate. And then we quickly came down to Sydney thinking we'll see the fireworks once. And as soon as I got to Sydney, I realised I love the outdoor lifestyle. I've got to join a football team. I've got to go and join a gym to keep fit and get a job. And I was pretty fortunate back in, I think it was that January. And I ended up getting, I think, 2 or 3 offers. And one was with a company called Free Spirit. It was an outsourced payroll and migration company. Fell in that, didn't realise at the time that I could potentially get permanent residency, but they sponsored me for 4 years. And I just felt that this is the place to be. So stayed there for a couple of years, met my what's now wife there as well. And, you know, of course, that was like 23 years ago. So changed jobs, moved to Foxtel, opened my own gym, sold that with a good mate of mine. Worked in music, and then fell back into a outsourced payroll company called Leicester's. Left there after a couple of years, and then got introduced to what's now my old business partner. We scaled and grew that company over an 11-year period after acquiring Leicester's years and years ago. And we'd actually implemented EOS into about 8-9 years ago with the help of an implementer at the time. Hence the reason why I've now become an implementer to help other companies scale and grow. So yeah, it's been ups and downs, a lot more ups than downs. And of course, when we met a couple of months ago, I've been doing a mental health talk with Steve Tolan, sorry. And yeah, I sort of wanted to share my story really to help others with regards to the mental health journey as well, because your life is full of ups and downs. And I definitely had a down moment after I sold the business. But again, upon reflection, I often say I'm grateful for that experience because I do look at life very differently. And yeah, so it probably helped having those job rejection letters, you know, when I was 16, 17 with the resilience and the upbringing. But yeah, that's where I've been, mate, in a short, sharp 2 or 3 minute snapshot for you.
Well, Sir Steve Tolan is a good guy. We've met off the back of it. He's doing a lot of good, or essentially of the kindness of his own heart. Really, there's no charging or anything there. And the mental health component of what he's doing and bringing recruiters together and business owners to talk about what they spoke about, I thought was fantastic. And he used the term earlier on facilitator. That's essentially where he is and what he's doing. And obviously, we wouldn't be talking if that wasn't for him. We're still yet to get him booked up on here, but I'll pin him down soon. I'll just wait until we get a decent result against Everton, so I can.
So we'll wait 2 or 3 years then, hey?
But I remember what you spoke about there, and you went into depth on the relative depth on your darker times, your challenges of the last business. And you're open there. You said you got your peaks and your troughs, but how bad did that get for you?
It was pretty bad. I mean, I look back on it, and yeah, it was definitely the darkest period of my life because I thought selling a business, I was supposed to be super happy, and I was going to go with the business with the acquirer. But what I'd sort of failed to really realise at the time after the sale, I'd actually not slept for about 7 to 10 days, and with sleep deprivation, my mind started to think some crazy thoughts. And I'd read an article in the paper about a competitor in the market years and years ago, and that competitor had interestingly been found out. It's one of the largest fraudulent white collar crimes in this country. And reading that in my what I didn't realise at the time psychosis state, I started to believe that the due diligence on my business or our business had been a police investigation. Of course, I started to believe that because I'd read the story, and yeah, it was crazy to think that can happen through sleep deprivation. But again, upon self-reflection, it's definitely given me a new outlook on life. I was always a pretty glass half full person, but I think, you know, with that sleep deprivation, it definitely made me have to rebuild and I suppose reconnect the brain to make sure and sleep properly. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's been a long road, but I'm definitely back to glass half full, if not overfilling sometimes.
Stay away from Optus Sport then.
Exactly.
A lot of our listeners, we've got lots of business owners, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and people looking to step into business. That's a common theme that we have here. I tend to try to talk people out of going into business, especially recruitment. Okay. And the reason for that is to test how important it is for them. So if they still want it, when I talk about the pitfalls, not the highs, because that's what they already know what that is, because that's what they're signing up for. Yep. The freedoms, the financial independence, blah, 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 the nice things. They need to be told the lows, and they need to know what to sign up for. So I tend to put people off it. Okay. And as I said, if they're still persevering, and they're probably the right sort of person to take that route in life. I think what's quite handy for the people listening to this is to hear your candidness on that story alone. Okay. So just sheer fact of not sleeping for that long. Okay. Is anybody else willing to do that? Are they, if it came from a place of necessity, would they do it? You know, actually, no, I wouldn't. I want to sit back here. And these are conversations that people don't see, because if we go on social media, we go on LinkedIn, we look at events, all we ever see is the gloss, the fluff, the pomp and ceremony. Look what we're doing. We're sponsoring this, we're like, whatever, you know, and that's what you just said then. People need to hear more of that, I think.
No, I'm 100%, 110% agreeing with you there, because if I look at social media, like we all use it, we promote ourselves. And I think the more authentic people are, the better it is for everyone, because there's a lot of people out there that take a picture of the good stuff, whether you look at Facebook or LinkedIn, and we can all enhance it. So if it's raining outside, we can make it sunny. And again, there's a lot of pomp and ceremony. And I think people do need to hear the real deal. The pitfalls. It's great when it's high, you know, when you're making money, but when, of course, there's a cash flow issue, whatever it may be, there's always going to be a bit of a dip, and those dips do make you more resilient. But I think the more people talk about the real stuff and the authentic deal, it gives people a better picture. So yeah, I do like social media, but I think we need to use less of it. And the networking events that Steve and, you know, you yourself organise, I think they're great, because we do get to understand people for them, and we can start to, you know, really hear those authentic stories, because life isn't perfect, right? If life was perfect, we'd all have an easy life.
But this is the thing. So I think, you know, social media, and you read into what it needs to do. It's almost like watching news. You take it with a pinch of salt and you join your own dots, you know. But something that you know, talk about relationships here is something I've spoken about a little bit in some other episodes recently. People have expectations of the relationships because of the movies they watch. So there's textbook stuff. This goes here, romance is showed there, everyone's happy and whatever. But you know, that's over like a 10-year period in an hour and a half slot. Okay. But the problem is now people have unrealistic expectations. Well, why is it not like this? Why is, you know, they've cut out, you know, 10 years of their journey just to put it as good bits and condense it down, you know?
Yes.
People do have unrealistic expectations now because they just take things on face value.
Mate, 100%. I mean, I don't know if fear is the right word. I'm probably more concerned. I'm married and I've got a little daughter. She's nearly 14 now. And then I've got a son, 16, nearly 17. And I'm concerned for the social media in their lives, because we can paint that pretty picture. And if that becomes the expectation that this is what the Joneses do, the Joneses are just painting a picture that's unrealistic, and we start beating ourselves up. I think I've done that in the past, and I think people do that. We've got to get back to real, authentic conversations where we can look each other in the eye and have open, honest conversations. I think that's the only way that we can get better as individuals and as humans and as communities.
Talk about media. Just listening to you, then you've made me think of something I hadn't thought of before. So you and I will be very familiar, and I haven't seen it since I've been in Australia. EastEnders, okay,
Yes.
which is doom, gloom, depression. Occasionally something nice happens. People want to kill each other. There's drug addictions. You know, it's all happening. Okay, it's just little pocket of East London. Okay, but then you had the popularity of Neighbours and Home and Away when that came through when we were younger, you know, and everyone in the UK loved it because it was sunny, happy, romance. And every now and again they'd have a catastrophe, like a car accident, something occasionally happened that was bad, but it was painted a different way. So then people loved all that stuff because that idea of reality was a lot more appealing naturally than the EastEnders. But in retrospect of what you're saying there, the EastEnders, they had it right. You know, correlation, whichever one it is, you know. It was real. All the crap was in there, probably a little bit too much, you know. But we didn't want to face it. Like, no, I don't want to see any more doom and gloom. Give me Australia and everyone's happy all the time.
Oh, mate, that is taking me back. My mum used to watch Coronation Street, and I think it used to be once a week or twice a week. Then it went to 5 days. I was an East End lover, but also used to watch Neighbours and Home and Away. And I think that probably put a little seed in my heart to actually come and travel because I wanted to come and see something different.
Yeah, fair cut. So we're reminiscing even further back.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay, all right. So we're on the same page with what we think people should hear, and I think people listening to this, they'll pick up on that as well. What was the main way that you dug yourself out of the shit, for want of better terminology?
Mate, it took a while, and I've chatted about this recently with a few people. I mean, one that I did have to because I actually went into a psychosis episode, which I didn't realise until obviously going into hospital. So the medication helped, but what hurt me that probably I needed not to hear, but to actually see every single time my wife would come into the mental health unit, she left. But I was telling myself in my own head that she was leaving me because that's what I thought in terms of the lack of sleep. But over a period of time, I changed from, you know, the one mental health unit to another, and they signed me over for another 14 days. And I started to think, well, the only way I can get home is to get myself better. So I really had to sort of dig deep because I absolutely adore my family. And, you know, again, that was a starting of the bell curve to go up. But of course, every single time I went home and, you know, seeing psychologists and psychiatrists, it was more about, well, what am I grateful for? I think often we want more, but sometimes, and I often say this to a lot of people, our gold is probably around us anyway. And, you know, maybe I was hunting for more gold, whereas my family were already around me. So, yeah, I'd say family and mates really helped me. And of course, you know, that mindset that I needed to get my head better, you know, to be more grateful for what I'd already got. So that was that's what helped me get out of the low point, the bottom of the barrel.
I think that's a great thing. So people talk about having gratitude journals and all this stuff. You know, that's not personally something that worked for me. I think different things work for different people, but there is always something we're grateful for. It could be your dog. It could be just where you happen to live and the view's nice. You know what? Fuck it. It ain't so bad. I'm not hungry. You know, there's not bombs going off over my head. You know, and so on and so on. Wasn't born
I agree.
in the wrong country out my choice and have completely different setup and start in life than where I have got. You know, there's a whole load of things that we can be grateful for and we can display in different ways. And if that's what pegs us onto an upward trajectory, then grab it outright.
Yeah, but I agree on all of that. Again, I mean, we often, when we talk in EOS terms as well, if I bring it back to business, you can have the worst day or you feel that you've had the worst week, but we always start a meeting with a segue saying, what's your personal win in your business win? There's always something we can attach to that there's something good that's happened. And I think when we're under our own bonnet in terms of business or our life, we can go into that spiral. And sometimes you just need that. Well, what's a good thing? What's working? Because there's a lot of things working in everyone's life, even if we do go through that period of time where there is that little bit of grey. There's always something that can spike us back out and get us back to where we could be and should be.
So this takes us quite nicely. You talk about segues into what you do now. I do have familiarity to it, but I must admit, if we were back at school, you'll be the headmaster, I'll be the naughty kid in the back row.
It might be me. It might be me in the back with you.
So you'll be a cool headmaster, we like it. All right. But so you talk about the EOS methodology, and I talk about this too, but you're very much plugged into it, and I want to hear more for this for the people listening. But I always liken this. It's like you're talking about being under the bonnet, and when you're there and you can't see the wood for the trees, blah blah blah. All the cliches coming out. But something that someone said to me recently, and I actually did a solo video about it. They said running a business is like looking at the label from the inside. So if you're inside a jar, this and the other, someone outside the business, they can see it for actually how it is, what it is, all the pomp and ceremony we talked about earlier. Everything we need to know, all the ingredients. We can see if it's half full, empty, if it's appealing or it's not. They've got a different lens on it. And yes, we're for the inside that. There might be some information that we need to see from the inside of the label. But we've got a limited view of our business, and I love that. I thought that really resonated with me, and it's something that I talk about when I talk about business coaching. You yes. need that trusted and experienced person or organization for looking at your business from the outside in.
Mate, it's funny you say that. You must have been a fly on the wall about 20 minutes ago, because I've just literally had a business owner walk out, and I've got a little man in a jar.
There we are.
And it says exactly that. It says you can't read the label from inside the jar. And again, if we look at life, when we're so far in the jar or under the bonnet, sometimes you need to have that perspective. Someone else can see things differently, and just ask questions. And if I go back to when I had my own business as heirs, and we brought an implementer into the business, I was so busy with stuff. And I was actually holding people back. And my story is, very quickly, I lost my phone and wallet in Noosaville River, and I was the only approver of payroll. And I was chasing $3.5 million of debt. And I was the bottleneck in my own business. And it was only when we brought the business, the EOS implementer into the business, that really shone the light. And I could then start to see and start to read the label from a different perspective, because people, or this implementer was challenging me in my way of thinking. And like I say, we do what we do. We think we're doing a great job. We might be doing a good job, but when we've got another perspective, whether it's a business coach, whether it's an EOS implementer, and all the tools within EOS are designed to really help owners really share their vision with the rest of the company and start to put a business framework and structure in place. And I've become that, I suppose, product and environment, having gone through the journey with EOS, having helped me flourish as a leader, as an owner, and allow other people, to flourish as leaders as well. And gone through that journey, having not flipped my business, but scaled and grew it, and then come out the other side now trying to help other people. It's an interesting journey. We always say we're a teacher, coach, and facilitator. And I think the one other thing missing from that is a counsellor, because it's, as you know, there's a lot of ups and downs in business. And we're that trusted advisor as a coach and an implementer with EOS.
It's funny you should say that. So when I started doing the business coaching and using that framework, I went down the counselling route. So I did the neuroplasticity certification, and that's what I worked on. So I worked on the personal development. That's what got my interest, and it's interesting. You see so many more cues when you look at things through a different lens. Hold on a minute. I need to have, if I'm talking this stuff and I am behaving much like a counsellor, I'm talking from lived experience and so on and so forth. I need to back myself a bit more. I need something else to pull on, which they may or may not have heard before, which has some greater value. So it's interesting. You've validated my thinking, which I appreciate.
It's an interesting journey when you're coaching and counselling. I found, I'm still fairly new to the journey. I've only been this as an implementer. Whilst we implemented it with the help of an implementer over about a 7 or 8 year period, this is really about, 16, 17 months in as a professional implementer now. But I'm learning every day. It's so easy to jump into that consultative approach and say, this is what you should do. But being a coach, you've got to step back and ask the right questions, because ultimately, and I say this most days, the only behavior I can change is my own.
Yeah.
And ultimately with EOS, we're trying to get people to change their behavior and their outlook on their business. And that's what all the tools do. It can hurt when the torch is shined into those areas. But when we use the methodology and the coaching and the tools all together, it's designed to get a better business. So it's not just for the owner of the business. They can start to share, and other people flourish as the business scales and grows. Because again, if I go back to my journey, I was the bottleneck. I wanted to scale and grow, but I was the one at the top stopping it. So I had to have those tools and methodologies, or the torch shone on me, to realize that I could be doing things very differently to help others and help the business.
I think what I liked also what you said there, so you started to talk about how we can't change their behaviours, we can only control our own, etc., etc., etc. And it's very much down to them with our guidance, support, and so forth, for them to do what they need to do. And it also then likened back to your situation with your psychosis episode. You know, almost certainly, you know, all the advice and the support you've been getting then it has to come from inside. It has to come from you. No one can force you to do these things. And obviously you had your moment and you started, as you said, come up the bell curve. So it's what's in business is in our personal life, and there's lessons that can be learned from all, and they all can join, really.
Oh, mate, tick, 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 in all of those. I fully agree. Like, we all, to a certain extent, get a choice. And it's whether or not we choose to want to change or choose to hear something. So it can be confronting, and when you've got self-awareness, I mean, it's actually quite a powerful tool. But yeah, hearing things, what we say and what we hear, sometimes two completely different things. But yeah, when you're coaching and counselling, we're really asking those really deep questions to make someone else's mind think differently if they need to, and it's their choice.
I do like here. There's another layer to that. So it's what you hear and what you think you hear, okay, and what you've heard from those little bits. We're all guilty of it, so there's no finger pointing here. It's just if you're aware enough to hold a minute. Oh, did I hear that correctly, or did I interpret this incorrectly? But then you've got the layer of what I call what is known as cognitive dissonance, where it's just, you know, you just lay down at the end of the day and you're mulling over certain decisions. We can convince ourselves something completely different was said, or I said this, and I tell myself, I'm like, fuck, excuse my French again, I didn't say that. Why am I convincing myself it? Is it making things smoother for me? You know,
I'm not laughing at you, mate. I'm laughing with you because I'm completely agreeing what you're saying. You know that.
Okay, all right. So putting it back into business in the EOS methodology, there'll be people that haven't heard of it, but it's world famous. It stood the test of time. It's got numerous success stories. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer for any business. Okay, it's agnostic in that sense, but there's still pushback on it, or similar methodologies or similar concepts. Okay, so yeah, I mean, sales, we call them objections. You know. And what are the common objections that you come across that stop people doing this, and how do you overcome them?
Good question. I found with people that I've presented to, I mean, my strong belief, my true belief is everybody needs it, right? But that's my belief. I think what it is where I've had objection is people aren't ready, or they don't need it because they already know the answers. And I do often say, and they're three real strong values of the EOS, and I'm not fairly upfront, I'm very upfront when I'm talking to someone. You've got to be open, you've got to be honest, and you've got to be vulnerable. Open to different ideas and different thought processes. You've got to be honest, because if you're not honest and you already know the answers, then you as a business coach, me as a business coach, EOS is not going to work. And if you're not prepared to be vulnerable, you know, to actually hear a different opinion or different thought process, then it won't work. So yeah, the objections I find is people aren't ready because they don't necessarily want to hear the answers or have the the light shone back on. I look at my own journey. It took me 2 years, and when I say 2 years, this is going back to when I had my own business as an outsourced payroll company. I thought my business was great. We were growing, we were making money, we had some decent staff. And it took me that I had to, not had to, but I lost my phone and my wallet, as I said, to actually shine the light back on myself and say, I haven't got this, I need some help. So yeah, that's really, when I say an objection, it's really just a learning curve for somebody else. And I think I also look at it and say, well, I think people should have it, but they've got to go through the hurt and the pain themselves to actually realise they need to look outside the box or outside the jar. So that's definitely an objection I've found, and I see and hear most weeks and most months.
It's interesting because I agree with that. I think the sentiment that they're not ready, and that's a human thing. That's not a business thing. Okay, they're not ready. But maybe they've got to go through more pain. Maybe they've got to be more humble. Whatever it may be, the timing isn't right for them. But the examples that you're giving when you're thinking of that, and when I also brought this up, are people that are in dialogue with us. Okay, so they're having a conversation with us about our business coach, whatever. So it isn't people that, yes, yeah, that's absolutely right. They're not ready. They're not chasing it. They're not looking at it. It's, and that I entirely get, and they've surfaced when they are. But when someone's having that conversation about business coaching, I want a better business, I want a better work-life balance, whatever it is, I want to scale, I want to sell, I want to, whatever, okay? If they're having it and there's still that there, that's always the bit I found that I struggle with, okay? Just that, and because the first step's been made.
Yep.
And that's usually indicative that the second step's ready to be made too.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why if I use those, when I say teacher, coach, facilitator, and I've actually messaged one of the other implementers last night and said, "Mate, I think there's something missing. There's the counsellor part." Now, when you've got your own business, again, if we look at the facade to everyone else, people go, "Oh yeah, they're driving a nice car, got a nice house. It's all good on the outside." But I think being that trusted advisor and counsellor, it does take that little bit more time to build the trust with the business owner, because if it took me 2 years to go drop my phone and wallet and then realize I needed help, some people don't want to share that I actually haven't got the perfect business. And it does sometimes take that little bit longer and more conversations to build up trust between business coach and prospect or business owner, is when they do not drop the guard, when they're more vulnerable and say, well, actually, we'll have this conversation. I just wanted to share a bit more depth. I think at that point, they're ready to not jump off the cliff, but let go of the vine and get somebody in to help out. And it's tough because we know all the answers, or we're supposed to. We're not. Nobody's got all the answers. And I do truly believe with the aftermath of COVID, there's more people looking outside the jar and saying, look, I'm prepared to get some external help because I need someone to bat some ideas off.
Okay.
And, often when we speak to people, you might be the same. The answers are already in the room, but they just need to be coached and asked the right questions to get the answers out.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. So that's for me, the definition of empowerment. And I think you're right there. So there's an element of a trust and a relationship which is there, which is interdependent. And it reminded me of being a bit similar to going to your GP. Okay, so you go to your GP, you get a new GP. It takes you a little while to open up, be vulnerable, be entirely honest. And clearly, we all know is to gloss over something with a GP. The only person hurting is yourself. Reminds me of the episode of Only Fools and Horses when Delboy turns up and he's like, yeah, I exercise twice a day, only smoke at Christmas. And he's like, total nonsense, but he's saying what he thinks the GP needs to hear because it's a new GP. Okay?
That's right.
Just a typical proud bloke, and we're keeping our cards close to our chest, but it's hurting him,
Yep.
Obviously, after going through things a little bit more, it's like, okay, right, this is the truth. This is where I'm at,
Mate, such a good resemblance. It's such a good analogy, that one. I was just laughing at Only Fools and Horses as well. We got brought up on that, didn't we? That's such brilliant episodes.
Oh, the best sitcom ever. My dog's called Del Boy, and I used
Is
to
that
have
right?
yeah,
Wow.
I used to have a parrot called Rodney. And he
love
used to tell him to sit down, shut up, get out. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I eventually got rid of the parrot because it started swearing obscenities at the neighbours. Don't know where it don't know where it go from.
Did you train him?
Yeah, but they pick up everything. They've had it in court, haven't they, where parrots have been able to give a testimony because they said something that only that person would know, and proved it stacked up as evidence.
Yeah, wow. There we go.
There we are. Anyway, that pretty much brings us to a close now. I appreciate your time and the conversation. I think we could keep going, but we need to be fair with these episodes. Anybody listening to this, you've got your personal story, you've got your business, you've got the EOS business coaching and what have you. What would be the best way for them to make contact with you, Colin?
Through the parrot? No, mate. LinkedIn's always a good way. They can send an email to colin.cuthbert@eosworldwide.com, or they can reach out to you, mate, and you can text me.
Done. All right, I'll do that.
Mate, appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thanks again.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.